Chad, my voice is going to sound really weird this episode because I freaked out probably worse than I ever have on a JV kid yesterday in a practice with no pads.
Are JV kids really worthy?
Yes, they are.
I'm joking.
They're worthy of getting ripped. I think you got to rip them early. I had a kid yesterday. We were running plays against barrels on my offensive line as a right tackle on JV, and he just stood up and he walked off of the line after I had told them to go 100%. And, I mean, I think I've seen worse stuff than that, but I yelled so loud, I have, like, my throat has, like, ripped parts in it. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's like I had to gurgle Alka-Seltzer or whatever that stuff's, the alcohol in my throat to try to heal it because that's how bad my throat hurts. Like, if coaches today were talking to me about, you screamed so loud.
What was it about yesterday? You just woke up feeling a type of way, or is just tired of some of that junk going on, or what was it like specifically?
It might be me becoming an old coach where I'm like, I expect you to do exactly what I say, which is good. I think you should be demanding, but it's infuriating that you can tell a human being to do something and they go the exact opposite way. Like, in no way, shape, or form was that playing hard. That was not that was the worst effort I've ever seen.
Was it? It was actually the worst effort you've ever seen?
No, but it's
that's what I said. So, like, what did he deserve your worst, like, yelling outburst you've ever had as a coach? Did he in that moment deserve that?
He deserved a 9.
So you gave him, you turned it up to about a 12 on the 10 scale, and he really probably only deserved a 9.
Well, it felt good. It felt good to do. I mean, he needed it, but it felt good to do. But I did go up to him afterwards, and I was like, "Look, man, I put my arm around him after practice." So,
did his effort actually get better from the yelling?
That's
important. Well, there you go.
Yeah,
because I mean, some kids go the other way now. You do that, and they shut it down, and it's going to be a whole thing. So that's good.
Yeah,
it means it helped.
I think I've learned a lot since I was a younger coach. And speaking of younger coaches, Chad, Patrick Nix.
Segway.
Patrick Nix, who we brought on the podcast this week, was the youngest coach in college at the age of 25 when he got his first head job. And that was at Henderson State. He went 3-19 in his first 2 years. Chad, would you still have been coaching after that, or would you have been done? Going to be a lawyer?
Golly, yeah, 3-19. I mean, that is what. Yeah. Going into my first head coaching job. If I get fired from this one, I'm out.
Well, after hearing him talk about it, he really did have a tough situation. So it really wasn't as bad as it sounds. But Coach Nix he's a great guy. He's a great coach. He was at Henderson State those 2 years as a head coach at the age of 25, a Division II school. After that, he went to Samford. Then he went to Georgia Tech, started off as the running game coordinator, became the offensive coordinator there. That job launched him to Miami. He was at the U. He was the offensive coordinator there for 2 years under Randy Shannon. And now he's at Pinson Valley High School. He's a 6A head coach in Alabama, and he's won the last 2 state championships there with his son going to Auburn, the #1 dual threat quarterback in the country for his class. So it was a blast to have him on. He gave a lot of good insight. Chad, what's one of the things that he shared that was really interesting to you or gave you some insight?
I mean, he's got unbelievable stories, but I mean, I just think that his perspective about his early career, I mean, it didn't go nowhere near how he expected, and he, basically said that he wasn't ready, even though he thought he was, and that a lot of coaches go through that. And so, yeah, and that's kind of weird because I'm kind of in that situation. Like, as he was talking, I was like, I mean, and he didn't say it as a blanket statement. But I mean, and I've heard that before, I heard that before I got the head coach job, and he's right. Like, no, but I don't think any head coach is really ready for their first job until it actually happens. So, but I mean, I don't disagree with him. I just think you can be in fortunate situations. I think that maybe what he's saying is an older coach could have taken that bad situation and still made something maybe better out of it, which could always be possible. But I just think his perspective on it is really great. He was able to take that and use it and really, I mean, going from a failed head coach and your first big shot to ended up being an offense coordinator at Miami is a good deal.
He has a really good perspective to me because he's such a strong Christian, and you could tell that from the way he talks about what's important to him.
I mean, he wrote a book about it.
Yeah. wrote a book about it. He's wearing an FCA shirt during the interview, and just a strong believer, and he truly does care more about that than winning. And I love hearing that perspective from him. I also thought the Calvin Johnson stories and Bill O'Brien stories were pretty cool. So he was awesome to have on. Guys, hope you enjoy Coach Patrick Nix.
Also, I think JV players are important.
Coach Nix, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on the Coach's Drive podcast and talk with us a little bit. It's an honor to
be with you.
Yes, sir. Coach, I want to start it off. You have a really interesting story, a really cool story. You got a job at Henderson State, Division II school, at 25 years old, a head coaching job. And I know that didn't go the way you wanted it to go probably at the time and the way you foresaw it going. You had 2 years there. I believe your record was about 3-19. Is that right?
Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, that's about right. Hey, you close to that, yeah.
Your recent history is really good, so that's why we're going here first. Coach, what was that like what happened to cause that? You know, what made that go in the opposite direction of what you wanted to go, looking back on it? What were some of the issues?
My first job coming straight out of playing, I went to Jacksonville State University and was the running back coach immediately my first years, second 2 years quarterback coach. And we had some crazy stuff going on at Jacksonville State at the time. And one of our coaches kind of talked me into sending my resume to Henderson State just to see what would happen. You know, Football Scoop was popular then too. It just hit the scene, and everybody was finding out about jobs. So one of our guys, talked me into doing it. So I sent my resume thinking there's no way I'll get the job. But it was neat to have to actually put it together. I thought it'd be a good experience, at least just putting the resume together. Well, the next thing I know, I get a phone call from Henderson State, and they wanted to interview me. And what had happened was I put Terry Bowden's name as one of my references because obviously I played for Terry. And so they called Terry. Terry talked them into interviewing me. I was the fifth guy to interview. And so when I left the interview, got my car, was actually driving to get on the interstate to drive back to drive back. And the athletic director followed me on the interstate on the on route, stopped me, blinking his lights, going crazy, stops me. I turn around, we drive back up the on route and go back to the school. My wife hadn't even seen the place. I got married in 95. And so she hadn't even seen the place. And I called her from their phone and said, hey, we're about to go to Henderson State. And that's a great test of marriage, by the way, that when your wife follows you, that means you got the right one in this profession. And she did. She was right there with me. But yes, absolutely went in there thinking that, hey, this is going to be great. Head coach, thought that I had all the answers. My dad was a high school football coach and very successful. And I'd been around him and thought, I knew what was going on. I'd played at Auburn, been around Coach Dye and Coach Bowden, and thought, I knew a lot. Jimbo Fisher was my quarterback coach. Tommy Bowden was offensive coordinator. So I've been around a lot of really good coaches and thought I had the answers and everything was going to be really good. Actually, the even crazier than that, our offensive coordinator was a guy by the name of Doug Meacham, who was the offensive coordinator at TCU for a little while, Houston, Kansas. Defensive coordinator was a guy by the name of Charles Kelly, who's been defense coordinator at Florida State, Tennessee. He's currently DB coach at Alabama. So that was my staff. And so I like to blame them. They were the reason why we couldn't win. I just had a bad staff. I mean, they just a poor choice of hiring guys. But no, obviously I did not do very good because I had a very good staff and we still couldn't win. But truthfully, we were all very young. And we walked into a situation when the school was hiring a 25-year-old guy. I should have known that the situation was not real good walking in. We literally walked in the first spring. We had 4 offensive linemen. We had about 26 guys on the team.
Wow.
So it was very difficult. We couldn't even hardly practice. We had a GA that had to play scout team quarterback the first year because we only had one quarterback. It was a rough deal. But I will say it really gave me a great appreciation for head coaches I worked for after that, of all the things that you have to do from the, in college, from the divvying out in Division II, the scholarship numbers and keeping the numbers right. I had no idea of that. I'd never been around that before in my life of, dividing up scholarships, and you only get 36. And at the school at the time, the NCAA allowed 36, but we only had like 24 that they gave us. So, we're trying to stretch 24 into as many as we can, and, trying to piece this together and that together. And, so a lot of things that I had no idea about, but when I walked out of there, I had a much better appreciation, a much better understanding. Like for me today, I understand how to run a budget because I had to run a very small budget, and on a very tight budget, we had to spend a lot with very little, and so learned how to do it, at a very early age, of how to do those kind of things. And I think, we did not do a very good, I shouldn't say, we did a very good job with what we had. I thought the winning, wins and losses weren't as good as what we would like for them to do. But I think now looking back, we absolutely left the place in a better situation than we found it. And since, it's been fun to keep up with Henderson State a little bit, and they've had some success. They've done good. We had, when I left, we had a brand new building design that I designed, and we had raised the money for it that they built. After I'd left, as soon as I left, they started building it. And so I think we were able to do a lot of things, a lot of good things in that situation, and left the place better than what we found it. And when I left, I was a much better coach from sitting in that seat and seeing all the things that you have to do as a head coach. That way, when I went to Samford or Georgia Tech or Miami, wherever I was, when the head coach gave me a responsibility to do, I took a little bit more pride of getting it done to help him, because I knew how difficult being a head coach is.
Yeah, I mean, that 25 years old, you're only 3 years older than players in the locker room. You definitely had a young staff, and I guess
we had one player older than us. One player older than me. He was an ex-military guy that we had brought in.
Wow.
He was literally 27 years old, playing linebacker for us. And so it was interesting. It was a lot of fun.
Well, you've won 2 state championships now, Coach. You've been an offensive coordinator at Miami. You've done a lot of things that a lot of coaches would love to do. Do you think if you hadn't gone through that experience at Henderson State, would you be the coach? Do you think you would have taken the path that you've taken to get to where you're at now? Do you think you would have seen some of the successes, or do you think that – I mean, did that make you a better coach going through that hard time?
It absolutely made me a better coach. Now, who knows how God would have orchestrated it from there. It's all his plan anyway, but
right.
But there's no doubt he gave me that experience to make me a better person, a better husband, a better dad, a better coach, all of it together. Met some very good friends there. A friend that I still have to this day, that's one of my best friends that I know I can trust. Coaching friends with those guys that when we were there, and going through that, and we still, we'll still talk about, and I'll still talk to some of those other guys that were with us, the GAs and student assistants, and some of them that when you go through things like that, you become pretty close, and and so still it's amazing. I'm probably talked to that staff and those guys and still those bonds with them as much as I do anybody, just because of what we went through and how we were battling together to get through it. But I think without a doubt, going through that struggle and learning, sort of on the run, on the fly, and learning the hard way a little bit, no doubt has made me a better coach in the long run.
What's one thing, or maybe a few things that you did as a younger coach, I mean, as a different time, that you would never do now looking back on it? You're like, why would I do that?
I don't know that I would say I would never do it. I don't think that I did anything just so dumb that, was careless or anything like that. But the one thing I think that I've learned since then, I was a lot more concerned with wins and losses. I was a lot more concerned with success. I was a lot more concerned with that. And I've learned as I've grown that's so minute. That's so, that really doesn't matter anymore. It's so much more about the kids. It's so much more about, developing kids, about, discipling kids, about watching them grow and become better men. It's so much more about that now than it was, for me when I was 25 years old. 25 years old, you walk in and, yeah, I knew I wanted to do that. I don't think I knew how to do that at the time. And I think that was the problem. And so now I truly understand how to love players a lot better. I understand how to develop them as a whole person. Like I said, I think that was our intention. I think I was too young to really understand how to do it. I just didn't have the experience yet. I'd seen some really good guys do it, the Tommy Bowdens and people like that. But I just had not done it myself enough yet to really understand what it truly meant to love your players and not worry about the success on the field. And what I've learned in turn is success on the field comes by doing all those little things off the field, by loving your kids and all that. It's not about X's and O's and those kind of things near as much as it is about loving the guys that you're around.
How do you find the balance between saying, I want to. That's my goal. That's the ultimate goal. But at the same time, I know I've got to win. Do you talk about going out there and winning? Is that a part of it, or is it you focus so much on the person and making them better men that you just say give it your best? Like, what is your?
It's definitely a balance, and I tell our guys all the time: the greatest competitor to ever live was Jesus Christ. I mean, he competed so much that he died for a guy like me that he didn't even know. We don't understand how to compete like that. We have a little finite view of what his infinite view of competition really is. So, my thing is, if Jesus competed for me that much, then I ought to be competing with him with everything I do, whether it's, whether it is X's and O's, whether it is in the weight room, whether it is on the field, whatever it is. I need to be doing it the best I can, but it's got to fall under the umbrella of love, that we're constantly loving our kids. And part of loving our players is holding them accountable, making them be disciplined in the little things that they're doing, working their tails off, making them strive to be the best they can be in everything they do. That's part of loving our kids. And when you're doing all those things, winning becomes just a part of it. Winning becomes not the part, it just becomes a part. And it's sort of a byproduct of all the other things that you're doing when you're trying to nurture and develop a kid, but we spend as much time game planning and getting the weight, organized for the weight room and our weight program and everything else. We do as much of that as we do anything because we know that's part of loving the kid. Part of loving the kid is putting them in the best opportunity they can to be successful, but that's not going to measure their worth for us, if that makes sense. We're not measuring, your worth is not measured by how many catches or how many tackles or how many wins or anything like that. No, that's not it. We have a lot of guys on our team that just really are not real good. I mean, they just, unfortunately, they're not, but they're still great kids that we love to death, and they're just as valuable to us as anybody else on the team, just as valuable as that guy that's going to go out there and catch 20 touchdown passes. We still hold him the same accountability as that other kid. So I think you have to just, make sure that, yes, you want to compete, you want to win, you want to do all those things, but you got to understand it's all those other things that help you get there and help you win.
Now, you've coached at the highest levels of college and high school. Do you get more gratification from developing kids in high school than, say, college, or is it just, a different side of the same coin?
It's very different. I get so much more enjoyment and out of coaching high school than coaching college. College, I tell people all the time, college, I have much more relationship with coaches from college than players. You're just never around the players. The NCAA doesn't allow you to be around the players. And so back in the day, you're around the coaches all day long. You're game planning, you're talking about recruiting, you're with them all the time. And then you'll see the player maybe, off season 3 hours a week, maybe. And during the season, they give you a 20-hour rule, but it's really you're seeing the player maybe 10 hours, 15 during the week that you're actually seeing him. And that time that you're seeing him is all about football. And that was the negative thing to me that I liked about college. But one thing I don't miss is every time I was around the players, the bulk of it was all about football because you didn't have time to do anything else. You had to get the game plan in. You had to go to practice. You had to do all those things in order to give them success and have a chance to win. And you didn't have a chance to really to spend time with them and eat with them. And, now in high school, you walk right in there at the cafeteria and you sit down with them and you're eating with them. You see them in the hallway in between classes. You're seeing them all day long. You see them before school. In college, it wasn't that kind of relationship. You were seeing the coaches at that time instead of players. So I tell people all the time that high school is much more about the players, and I don't see the coaches a lot, in high school because we're all so busy with our classes and morning duty and being a parent and everything else. It's almost opposite. When we see each other as coaches, it's all about football, but when we're seeing the players in high school, it's all about the player. It's about getting to know them and making sure that they're okay. And each one of them had, what situation is at home and what's going on in class. And, in college, you hired 20 other people to deal with the academics and this and that. That wasn't your job, and you had to do your job and you tried to do some of that other stuff on the outside of it, and there wasn't a whole lot of time to do that though with the players.
Coach, what did you went to college, you were a coordinator at Georgia Tech in Miami. How did you get that coordinator job at Georgia Tech? What were you coaching at Samford before you went to Georgia Tech? Were you receivers? Were you coordinating there? What was your job at Samford before that?
I left Henderson State and went to Samford. And when I got to Samford, I was the wide receiver coach. And then about 4 games into the season, our head coach was let go, and offensive coordinator was promoted to head coach, and I moved up to offensive coordinator and basically ran everything and called everything for the rest of the year after that. And then once the season was over, Coach Gailey got the job there at Georgia Tech. Did not know Coach Gailey at all, but knew a guy, coach by the name of Glenn Spencer. Glenn, from once again being at Henderson State, he was at West Georgia. He was the head coach at West Georgia, so I'd gotten to know Glenn from there. Glenn was now the defensive line coach at Georgia Tech. Happened to see him in San Antonio at the convention. Got to talking, and he said, "Hey, do you know Coach Gailey?" I said, "No, I really don't." He said, "Well, you need to call Billy O'Brien, send him your information. I'm gonna talk to him, and because Coach Gailey doesn't know a lot of college guys, and he's looking to hire a few more guys. And with your dad coaching in Georgia, being high school coach in Georgia, he needs that kind of thing." So one thing led to another. I talked to Coach O'Brien, I talked to Coach Gailey, and went over and met him. Next thing you know, he hires me, and I come in and coach the running backs my first year. Like I said, Billy O'Brien was offensive coordinator. And then when Billy left and went to Maryland with Ralph Friedgen, then I moved to quarterbacks after that. And Coach Gailey was basically the coordinator from that point on. I was kind of entitled the passing game coordinator. I think I was running game coordinator at first. Buddy Geis was passing game coordinator. And then after 3 years of that, my last year, Coach Gailey named me the offensive coordinator and gave me everything, called the plays, did it all. And then after that 1 year, then had the opportunity to go to Miami and be offensive coordinator there.
So Bill O'Brien, that's a name everybody knows. A head coach in the NFL. He's been a coordinator for Tom Brady and the Patriots. Is there anything at that time that you would have said, this dude is going to be like a big time coach? Is there something that really sets him apart from other coaches? Or do you think it really just ends up being the people that you know and working hard and chips falling where they need to for you to end up at an NFL level and having the kind of career Bill O'Brien's had?
Well, Billy, there's no doubt that you got to know somebody and got to have the ball bounce your way a little bit. But one of the smartest guys I've ever been around. Unbelievably smart. I mean, photographic memory type of smart. Extremely detailed. Unbelievable. Now, Coach Gailey was extremely detailed too. And those are probably two of the most detailed guys I've ever been a part of. I mean, we didn't draw a card at Georgia Tech without knowing exactly what play it came from, what game. It had to be on the card. When you drew the defense, it had to be this blitz comes from this game, this situation, this play. And so, Coach Gailey or Coach Billy, they would go and challenge you and say, okay, where'd this come from? Well, it came from right here, and so they were that detailed to know, okay, it's 3rd down and 4. We're going to run this. We're going to run this out of this formation. And, I mean, it was just unbelievably detailed with how both of them were. But Billy just so smart. I mean, just unreal. He's an Ivy League guy anyway, and just understood, played defense in college, really had a great understanding of defense, unbelievable understanding of offense. So, yes, there was no doubt. When I first started talking to Billy, I thought he was this old guy because, I'd never met him or anything.
Yeah.
And talking to him, I was thinking he was like this 50, 60-year-old guy. Because, I mean, had some wisdom. He was a smart dude. I meet him for the first time, and he's like 8 years older than me. He's like 33, 34 years old, and here I'm about 26. I'm like, dude, you're young as can be, but you can just tell just really, really, really smart, very much attention to detail. And so, yes, you could tell that there is no doubt good things are going to happen for him. And that's another incredible story of him stepping down to go to Maryland, stepping down to go to the NFL, and rising back up by going down to come back up, and then unfortunately in our profession now, too many of our young coaches coming in, they want to go straight into being a coordinator, straight into being a head coach. They don't think that they have this or that to learn. And going through it, being a young head coach, watching Billy O'Brien do it the way he did it, you're not ready when you think you are. There's still a lot of learning to do, a lot to grow. And then once you've learned it, you've grown there, then that's when you see yourself really having success like you expected to when you were 25 to 30 years old, and you're just not quite ready for it.
How'd y'all get Calvin Johnson to go to Georgia Tech? Like, he's like the best athlete in the country at the time.
Yeah. I had the fortune of recruiting Calvin. And that was one of those to where, you would be in the school, and every chance you had, NCAA wise, every opportunity they had, you were in that school. You'd be there at the beginning of the day where everybody saw you walking into school. You'd come back at lunch when everybody was in the lunchroom, make sure everybody saw you. You'd be back in the afternoon, and you'd go hit other guys in between. He was just that kind of a guy that, the students would think, he's been here all day. But no, you'd slip away when they were at class to go down the road somewhere. But, yeah, that was the guy. But I remember Calvin, they didn't throw the ball to him much at all. Coach Rodney Walker was his head coach at Sandy Creek, and they didn't throw the ball much to Calvin at all his junior year. But I remember, I know what. Rodney was not very smart. Sometimes coaches are not real smart, right?
That's insane.
But literally, Coach Walker told me, he said, Patrick, I'm telling you, this guy's really good. And I'm like, well, I got to have some
throw him the ball.
I can't just walk into Coach Gailey and say, hey, this guy's good. His coach says he's good. We need to offer him. He looks pretty. He's 6'4", 205 pounds, 210 pounds. But I got to see him play a little bit. And they didn't have a highlight. There was no such thing as huddle, none of that kind of stuff. So I remember one day going in and taking all their games. They played 11 games. Got beat in the first round of the playoffs. I took every game, VHS tape, took my own blank copy, and sat in there the whole day and made a highlight tape. And, and when I was done, I went back and watched it. And every time that they threw the ball to him, every time that he actually played on the kickoff cover team and had a couple of really good tackles as a safety, had some returns, everything that he did, I went through everything he did. We put on there really, honestly, less than 30 plays. That he really got the ball thrown to him and all that, which is crazy, that he's not being used more. But when you watch the plays, it was like, holy cow, this kid's incredible. And so actually did not quite finish the highlight tape. So I took all the tapes with me to go back to Georgia Tech and finish up. And I just conveniently did not take those original copies back to them for a few weeks, so they couldn't make a highlight tape of Calvin. So not everybody got to see him as early as we did. Which was probably not very nice of me to do, but it's recruiting and nothing illegal about it. But I showed him to Coach Gailey. Coach Gailey was like, this guy is great. So we offered him quick, offered him first. And in those days, you weren't offering kids as 9th and 10th graders, any of that kind of stuff. So we offered him right after his junior year. And then, his mom, very well educated in education. Dad worked for the railroad, great man. And just a really solid family. Older sister that was going, that was at, I forget, she was at one of the schools there in Atlanta at the time, and was just very well educated family. And his mom wanted him to have that kind of education. And so he was also a big baseball player and thought he was going to play baseball. And I remember one spring, Coach Gailey and I took the day, went saw him at school, then went and watched him play baseball at Woodward Academy. And he couldn't hit the curveball. And Coach Gailey looked over at me and said, this dude, he can hit a fastball a long way, can track anything down in the outfield, but he can't hit a curveball. And so you knew that his baseball career was not going to be real long because he could not hit the curveball. But our baseball coaches talked to him a little bit. He thought he might come in and play football, baseball, but it didn't take him long to realize. I think it was his 3rd or 4th game against Clemson. He caught 3 touchdown passes at their place for us to upset them. And the 2 corners were both first-round picks themselves, and he just made them look bad. And I think all of us realized, including Calvin, that, hey, dude, you're special right here. There's no sense in worrying about baseball. Just keep playing football, and you're going to be just fine.
Coach, let me ask you this. If he's on his recruiting visit with Bill O'Brien and Bill O'Brien's seen him play baseball, knows he can't hit the curve, Coach O'Brien, if y'all let me play baseball here, I'll come to Georgia Tech. What's O'Brien going to say?
Oh, you can play baseball.
You can play.
Hey, son, I believe in you. Yes. You'll be the cleanup hitter.
No doubt. You can play baseball. Coach Hall was there at the time, too. Danny Hall was the baseball coach. Coach Hall was with us. Hey, you can come out here and play baseball. He knew he's never going to get it because he knew how good he was. But, yeah, you can come out here. Because, truthfully, if he'd have really wanted to play baseball, Coach Gailey would have let him play baseball. But I think Calvin and all of us realized, don't waste your time, buddy. You're about to make yourself a lot of money in this game called football because there's nobody better than you at what you do.
I wanted to ask you one more thing about Bill O'Brien. Was there anything that he, like, what was his pet peeve? Every coach has their thing that makes them freak out or gets them upset or they want to be exactly perfect. Was there anything around the office? It doesn't even have to be football related. Like during the day, you were like, all right, we don't need to let Coach O'Brien see this, or I don't want to mess this up for him. Was there anything that he would kind of freak out about?
You know, there was a lot of things. He was a perfectionist now.
Yeah.
He couldn't stand one of his pet peeves is he didn't like guys that went to ate lunch out of the office. He just couldn't understand that. Couldn't understand why you weren't in the office eating out of a styrofoam cup with a plastic spoon, watching video and getting things done. We don't have time to be eating or exercising or something like that. I mean, he was Billy was as intense of a coach as you will ever be around at that stage of his career. Now, I'm sure he hasn't changed a lot. Haven't been around him in that capacity, since 2002, I guess it was, so a long time. But he was a very intense individual and very driven. So I would say probably as much as anything, you better not be caught over in the cafeteria when he was needing to figure something out with a card or practice script or wanted to talk to you about, a drill that he wanted you to do or something like that. You better be around and be available, ready to go if he needed to talk to you. And from what I understand, I never was with Coach O'Leary, but from what I understand, Coach O'Leary wasn't much different, and Billy basically grew up under him, and that's where he learned a lot of it. So I think that he came back pretty honest from what he had been with the staff before.
What was it like working for Randy Shannon at Miami? Like, how similar was he to that, or did he just have he seems like from the outside, I was, still in high school then, but it seemed like he was a little bit more maybe hands off, but was just a very poised, like, we're going to be very disciplined, buttoned up, all of those kinds of things. Is that how it was?
It's pretty accurate. Randy wasn't as detailed as the other guys that I'd been around. He was in a bad situation, to be honest with you. Coming in when he came into Miami, they were coming off some rough times and some times when I guess it was Pata that had just been murdered down there, and some turmoil going on with the team with some lack of discipline and things like that. And when Randy came in, he had to sort of go the other direction with it and really rule hard and really be tough on the guys and all that kind of stuff. So it was a tough situation for him coming in. Really good guy to work for. Really smart football coach. I think probably, and this is just my opinion, I think probably the hardest thing and the worst thing for Randy that got him was probably the outside, the Jimmy Johnsons and the Michael Irvins and all those guys that wanted to meddle and tell you what to do and tell you how to do it. And got in his ear with this, that, and the other, instead of just letting Randy be Randy and just do what you do and believe in it. And because of that, we never really, fell into to being who we were and being comfortable with who we were. Every time, we were at that time, believe it or not, we were trying to do a lot of RPO stuff. We were trying to get into some of that. And it was I'll never forget, we were at Duke the first time they ever brought the smoke blitz sound Mike off the edge. We were running zone. We pull it, throw a slant to the inside receiver for a big play, and everybody went crazy thinking, what in the world just happened? Because it was the first time, everybody thrown some bubbles and stuff like that, but nobody had really thrown the ball down the field off of the run game. And we pulled it through a slant right in behind that linebacker that blitzed, and it was like, holy cow. Well, the next week, he wanted to be more two-back, tight end, run the ball, play action pass. It's like, it's not who we are. It's not what we got. And so I think, it was that struggle of going to the new age and using the athletes that we had, but at the same time being what Miami had always been, and so, and I think he unfortunately was in that transitional period right there of, them wanting to stay with who Miami had always been and trying to move into the new generation of football, and using the athletes that Miami had, and so, like I said, unfortunately, he was obviously a big defensive guy and didn't mess with us as much offensively, except, like I said, to come in and say, hey, look, I want to be more two-back tight end. It's like, holy cow, okay, let's figure out how we're going to do that then.
Yeah.
And so, but a very good guy to work for. Like I said, I think that for him in that situation, it was a tough situation for him to be walking in at that time.
Literally, the next question I was going to ask you was there pressure from former players and alumni and things like that on you during your time. Like, how challenging was that? I mean, that must have been brutal to be, because those guys will come, sit on freaking sidelines in the middle of games too.
It was never bad for me.
You were sort of shielded from that.
I know it was bad for me. That's why I got fired, but it was not bad for me personally, them coming and saying, what in the world are you doing? Let's do, it was actually pretty neat at times. Like, you'd have Reggie Wayne come in there and spend a half a day with us talking about different routes that they were running in Indianapolis, or, and things like that. So there was actually some times that, that were really, really good with some different things, and some of those former players coming in and getting them on the board, talking to them, going through things, the Ken Dorseys and some of those type of guys that were actually pretty good and valuable, with that. Now, I know, like I said, I'm sure that, as soon as they walked out of the office, it wasn't real good for me. But, when they were in there with us, it was very good. It was you could do a lot of learning and learn from those guys and get some good stuff that they were doing in the NFL or things that they'd done in college, whatever. But some really good information from them. But there's no doubt a lot of those players, a lot of them were great and really wanted to be involved in a good way. But then you had a few that were involved and skewed things the other way just a little bit. But by far, I would say the vast majority of those guys, they loved the University of Miami, wanted Miami to have success, and wanted us to have success. And when they would come around, the Jonathan Vilmas or any of those guys, when they would come around, they were nothing but good. And you could get some great information from them, and just really good guys and really smart football players. And, and so I enjoyed being around those guys and getting to know them and being around them in those situations. But yes, I know for Randy there was a lot more pressure than there was for me, because he had played with them, he had been around them a lot more than I had, and they had his ear a lot more than they had mine.
Now, there's a name from Miami that I remember because I grew up a Florida State fan. I just did, even though I'm from South Carolina, I just did. So, and I was very in tune in Miami recruiting and stuff. And there was always this name. And Miami sort of went down at the same time Florida State kind of did. Like, they sort of mirrored each other. And there's a guy named Kyle Wright, a quarterback that came in that I remember he was supposed to be the savior of Miami. At the same time, we had a couple guys, Drew Rutherford and Xavier Lee, coming in Florida State. Like, they were supposed to be the saviors to bring both programs back up. And it didn't work out on either side. It didn't work out for Florida State for me, unfortunately. But it didn't really work out for Kyle Wright either. I know you coached him a little bit. Like, what was the reason for that? Because he was, one of the top, if not the top quarterback in the country. Had all this hype coming into Miami, as sort of seemed to me from the outside as like the savior, and it didn't work out. Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Kyle's senior year was my first year there.
Okay.
So I had him for 1 year, and I think there was already a lot of scars. A lot of water under the bridge. I think part of it is, a California guy coming to Miami it's you didn't come out early. You didn't do that. So freshman year, in my opinion, is a wash. You might as well forget about the freshman year, just trying to get you adjusted to the culture and the environment, the time change, all those kind of things. So, so probably his freshman year was kind of a wash. Then all of a sudden they started going through some turmoil. And quite honestly, the players weren't near as good as what everybody thought. Once that class of about 2002 left, it started going downhill pretty quick with the talent level. And I don't know that how they were recruiting. I wasn't down there at the time, but I know when I walked in, the talent level was not overly good. Especially a lot of the skill positions. That you didn't have a lot of those skill guys that they'd had in the past, and unfortunately, for Kyle, I think he had to deal with that. And then, you think back in the day with Miami, and a lot of those quarterbacks, they got a lot of credit. But they had some of the best running backs that you could have. They had some of the best wide receivers, offensive linemen, but more importantly, their defense was unreal. And so they'll be up 21-0, and they hadn't even scored an offensive touchdown yet. The defense scored 3 touchdowns, and it looks like the offense is doing great. Hadn't done nothing. Then you go out and you end up winning 49-7, and all you did was score, 4 touchdowns, and the defense had scored the first 3 to put the game out of reach. And so Kyle didn't quite have that when he came in. He didn't, unfortunately for him, he didn't quite have the dominant defense that they had the skill guys around him that weren't quite the same caliber as many of them, I should say. And so I think, as a quarterback, you always get too much blame and too much credit. And so I think that he sort of probably fell into that, because there was times I remember, the Texas A&M game, a Thursday night game, his senior year. My daughter was born the next morning. That's probably why I remember it so well. Wow. He lit it up that Thursday night. I mean, was just on fire. We even, I had several GMs and NFL coaches and scouts call me after that, saying, "What's the deal, man? That guy, this dude." I told him, I said, if he plays like that, he's unreal. But just there was a little bit of inconsistency, from that, of accuracy and filling the rush and some of those kind of things. And, a lot of it's not his fault. A lot of it was probably, my fault, the coordinators before, that there were so many of us, there were so many different things, and he had so many different things to learn and, and stuff like that, he, unfortunately for him, he takes a lot of the blame, and probably doesn't deserve as much as what, he's had to take. And I hate it for him, because he, in shorts and pass scale, things like that, just throwing against air, very, very talented. Big, 6'4", 225 pounds, 4'6" guy, could make every throw on the field. Just didn't quite translate on the field during games.
Coach, Miami, last game of the season, you're down by 1, no time left on the clock. You have to go for 2 to win the game. What play were you running?
We had it's a little bit more common now, but we called it Old Brown Shoe. And Jeff Stoutland, who was our offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland's now at the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line coach, really, really good. He was with us at Miami, great offensive line coach. They had ran it. He was at Michigan State before. They had ran it at Michigan State, called it Old Brown Shoe. We were starting to go through our package with what we were going to put in, and everybody has their 2-point play for the end of the game when you got to have it. And it was basically the tight end came and played tackle. Tackle moved out to play tight end. Then we motioned the tackle over to the other side. We motioned another guy over, and we had the tight end and another guy coming back the other way, hoping the defense wouldn't see that he was an eligible receiver, all that kind of stuff. And so it was sort of that trick play type of thing that you see a little bit more of now. Didn't see quite as much of it then. Actually, when he drew it on the board, first time I'd really seen it. But we called it Old Brown Shoe, so that everybody would know what it was, and that's what it was going to be. And it's just our whole thing was it's reliable as an old brown shoe. When you put it on, you know that shoe's going to fit good. And so that's sort of why we called it that. And but that would have been the play. Now who knows? We never ran it a single time. We repped it so many times, but never ran it. We actually, one year against Florida State, a 2-point play, we actually ran a tackle throwback to Jason Fox, and he ended up scoring on it. We ended up getting beat at Miami 40-38 or something crazy that game. But that was one of the, a tackle throwback, tackle eligible to him was a play at the end. You probably remember that one.
I do.
And it was,
really
an incredible game. We gave up a touchdown on 3rd down and 18 from the 18. They stinking ran one back power for a touchdown. And if we don't give up that touchdown at the end, we would have come back and beat them, because we were, we had started moving the ball pretty well. And, but we never actually ran Old Brown Shoe. We should have ran it at some point just for the fun of it.
I just want to call it.
I was going to be fired when I did. We'd have ran it for sure just for the fun of it.
Coach, you're in Alabama now coaching high school, and it's really interesting, I think, for a lot of coaches across the country to hear what are some of the differences between Auburn and Alabama from an insider's perspective. I know you're an Auburn fan and your son's going to Auburn and all those things, but what are the perceptions of Auburn and Alabama? Like, if you have an Auburn coach come and recruit your school and an Alabama coach come and recruit your school, what do you think the differences are in those pitches? Are they different types of guys? What are the differences in them, if there are any, that are noticeable?
I don't know if there's any difference in the coaches. I got a ton of respect for Alabama coaches, Alabama players. A ton of respect for them, ton of respect for Auburn, and love for Auburn, obviously. So I don't know that there's really a difference in coaches and that kind of thing. The biggest difference in the two schools, and I don't say this to say good about Auburn, about Alabama, is true. The big thing is Alabama is all about Alabama football. It's all about Alabama football. Auburn is about Auburn. It's not about football. It's not about basketball. It's not about baseball. It's not about sports. It's about Auburn. It's about, it's about Toomer's Corner. It's about Sanford Hall. It's about, it's about the little things and tradition and the people and all that. And, and in my experience with Alabama, it's about Alabama football, and I jokingly say all the time, and I don't think it's really a joke, that probably 75% of Alabama fans have never stepped foot on Alabama's campus. They're an Alabama fan just because Alabama has won some championships, and and that's very debatable with how many they've won.
They say they won a lot. They say they won a lot. There's
they
some back in the day that.
Hey, if the Western Aldo from Adiana right up the road claimed them as national championship in 1947,
they count it.
They count it. And so. I like to remind Alabama fans all the time that Auburn does have more undefeated seasons than Alabama. Nobody knows that because you'd think Alabama, surely they've got 18 undefeated seasons because they got 26 national championships is what they want to play. But that's not quite the case. But anyway, you can tell a little bit of.
It's coming out. The more you
it's
talk.
Coming out. We shouldn't have went down this road. Y'all are setting me up. But truthfully, I got a lot of friends that played at Alabama. A lot of respect for those guys. A lot of respect for the coaches. A lot of respect for Coach Saban and what he's done. And, he's recruited our players. He's currently recruiting our players, recruited Bo, my son. And so a lot of respect for those guys and for what they've done, and what they've done over the year. My dad, when he was coaching in Alabama, when I was younger, he was a high school coach here, would go over and visit Coach Bryant and, had a lot of respect for him. And, so I think that, the two schools are very similar in the fact that they work hard, just a bunch of kids that play hard, work hard. Alabama now has changed a little bit. They're a lot more of a national school, national recruiting, not only their student athletes, but their student body. Auburn is still, you got state of Alabama, Georgia, Florida, are the predominant, states that are of students that are going to Auburn. Alabama, there's so many, I saw a stat the other day and I forget what it was, but Texas, California, all those, now they've got so many students from those states that it's just unreal.
Yeah.
So Alabama has strategically went out and tried to become a national school, not just athletics, but as a school in general, where Auburn still wants to be more of a family school, a home school, that kind of stuff. And to each his own, both have had great success. You can't, Alabama in 1992, they won a national championship. 1993, we turned around and went undefeated, and so, when you really look at it, except for, like this little spurt here that Alabama's had, Auburn, Alabama have been very equal on the field in football. You look back to the last 25 years, and it's virtually, I think, either Auburn or Alabama one is only up by one in the wins, and so that's what makes the rivalry so good, is that it's a true rivalry. And everybody says that, how Alabama's dominated and all this, where Auburn beat them 2 years ago. Auburn's beat them several times in this little run that they've had, and Auburn's really been the only team that has consistently beat them outside of Clemson. It's been Auburn and Clemson that have done it, and I think that's what makes the rivalry so much fun, is that even when Alabama is in its highest days and are really good, Auburn's still going to be right there to be the thorn in the side and beat them. And, now Auburn will beat them, and they'll end up somehow winning a national championship or claiming it. But Auburn will still beat them, so Auburn will be the best team in the state, and Alabama will claim a national championship. But I think that's what makes it fun, is that it is so competitive. It's very competitive in the state in recruiting. Very competitive in the state. With the sports, with football. But like I said, I think that Auburn is Auburn, and Alabama is more about Alabama football. Most people associate Alabama with Alabama football, is how they associate it. So
how great is life when you wake up as a 21-year-old and you're the starting quarterback of Auburn, just walking down campus?
For me, it was incredible. I grew up an Auburn fan. Both my parents graduated from Auburn, so growing up, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to play at Auburn, and never even considered, even thought of playing in the NFL until literally after my senior season. And an agent approached me, and I was like, well, maybe so, but all I wanted to do was play at Auburn, and quite honestly, play at Auburn and beat Alabama. That's about all you wanted to do growing up, and so for me to have that opportunity, unreal. And now to see my son being able to do it, is you can't put it into words. To be there and wear my numbers, same number, and have the same opportunity, that I had, except much better than I ever thought about being. It's a lot of fun. It was great then, and it's probably even better now as a dad, to sit back and watch. A little more nervous sitting back watching as a dad, but still a lot of fun.
I hope your son gives Nick Saban nightmares, Coach. I want to love
too.
every second of it. I'm going to be hoping he's screaming and hollering, "Stop that Nick's kid!" Golly, I hope he goes 4-0, 3-0, however many he starts. That'll be fun.
It would be great, and that's high cotton and high challenge to do.
Oh yeah,
But it would be it would be great. It would absolutely be great.
Coach, I wanted to wrap it up with asking you about your book. I know that you published a book, and it's really cool because it's something that it's something close to me because it's about raising your children and being. The book's called David Had a Dad, Courageously Raising a Young Man After God's Own Heart, because my dad's a football coach. He's raised me to love the Lord and live for him. And I just was curious, what is that? What do you? Why did you write that book, and what's it all about?
Well, when I was in high school, I think anybody that hears the story of David sort of falls in love with him, and especially when you read that David was a man after God's own heart. You're like, I want to know more about him. And then when you go to look at David, you're going to go straight to David and Goliath. I mean, that's just everybody wants to go to the story of David and Goliath. And so growing up, I studied the story of David and Goliath. And through high school, whenever I'd have a chance to go and speak, I would generally go and speak about David and Goliath and have a little 4-part, talk that I would do. And as time went, it expanded to a 10-part deal that I actually used for Bible studies for our players and things like that. And in 2000, I guess 9, I got fired from Miami and still had a year and a half left on the contract. And I had 2 choices. I could go back into coaching and they wouldn't pay me a dime, or I could stay out of coaching and make them pay me for a year and a half for very good salary. So it was not a very hard choice for me. Hey, you can pay me every dime, then I'll take it. And so in that time, I was a really good stay-at-home dad, great flag football coach, and wrote a book. And and so that's when I actually sat down and put all my thoughts on paper and put the stories together, put the 10 principles together, and all that kind of stuff, and still use it. I go through it with our team about every 3 years. We'll go through because I truly believe that the 10 principles that I believe Jesse imparted to David to go and take on Goliath are 10 principles that everybody needs, not just our kids, but our players, and male, female, doesn't matter who they are, that are some incredible truths out of the Bible and from the story of David and Goliath that we can all apply to our life to give us a better opportunity to face those giants that we're going to have in life, or just to face the ordinary things that we have in life. But things that, from that story that I think, once again, everybody is gravitated to that story, but some principles that I really believe that David took. And I personally believe, when you look at it, the story begins with David being the son of Jesse, and the story ends with Saul saying, "Hey, whose son is that young man?" That's where the story begins and ends. All the other stuff in between is the fight, but the story begins with Jesse and ends with Jesse. So there's something about Jesse that God's trying to tell us that we need to look at. And as coaches, as dads, as anybody that is over, a grandparent, whatever you are, anybody that's over the younger generation, or that can impart those principles to, I think is very important. And like I said, it's principles that I live by, principles my family has lived by, and teams have lived by, and everything over the years that just was blessed enough to put it down on paper and write it and get it published and that kind of thing.
Yeah, having a biblical approach to raising guys, whether they be kids or guys that you're coaching for 4 years, I think that's, from my perspective, that's the most important thing you could learn. So I'm really glad you wrote that book, and I think it's awesome to have as a guide to be able to do that with. Coach, last question before we go. Chad and I always do a little segment on our show called the Coach's Cliche. And I was wondering if you had, throughout all your years, if there's one cliche that you've heard coaches say, no matter what program, because you've been at Georgia Tech, Miami, Samford, you played at Auburn. Is there anything that they say? A couple of the ones we've already talked about is get somebody in there that can do it, even when there's nobody that can do it. We've talked about we've talked about if you don't want to be here, leave. Chad, what's the other one we talked about?
I don't want to be here, leave.
There's one more. If you don't want to be here, leave. Get somebody in here that can do it.
We talked about don't worry about looking pretty with wristbands and all that stuff.
Yeah. Don't look pretty. You want to look pretty. Is there anything you've heard from all the programs you've been at that's a cliche that's stuck with you throughout the years?
Probably the biggest one is what you've already said. If you don't want to be here, leave. Because most of the time when you're saying that, you don't really want them to leave. You're hoping they don't leave, but you're saying it anyway.
You don't say that to Calvin Johnson, do you?
No,
Calvin
you
Johnson
don't say
doesn't
it,
get
Calvin.
that.
Not at all. Not at all. But so and we are as high school coaches, we're full of cliches, and we say things that and we talk. One of the things we talked this week with our team is about forgiveness. And how many times us as coaches have to go to them and ask for forgiveness because we say dumb things out there that we really don't mean. And then once we stop and think about it, we're like, how dumb was that? So we have to go back to the kid and apologize. I really don't think that you're awful. I really do think that you're a good player. Just that one step wasn't good. So we're going to call a kid awful because of one step, and we just sometimes as coaches, the competitive nature comes out in us a little bit too much. And the kids, I know sometimes they look at us like we have four heads. Like, what are you talking about? And so you have to go back and apologize, put your arm around them and love them. But I think as coaches, we say a lot of dumb things.
We do.
I'm glad people don't go out and record some of the things we say. It might not be profanity or any of that, but it's just dumb. It's just, you're just an idiot. You want to put here's your sign, where you sign that you're an idiot, for saying it. And then, like I said, after a few minutes, you think back and you're like, that didn't make any sense right there, and so. But yeah, coaches I don't know that we're always claimed to be the smartest guys in the world, but we work really hard, and so we have a lot of good cliches.
We do. Yes, sir. We say a lot of dumb stuff. Me and Chad try to talk about one every episode, but Coach, it's been fun having you on, hearing some of your stories and how you've come through your career and gotten to the level you're at now and processed some of the hard times in the beginning. But we greatly appreciate it. It's been a blessing. It's been an honor to have you on.
Thank y'all. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
I was extremely close to telling Coach Nix that nothing would have made you happier as a high schooler than to see him lose his job, like in the first quarter of his first game, because of how much you hate Miami as a Florida State fan.
Oh, yeah, literally. Like, that would have been like a dream of mine. Like, offensive coordinator, like, wake up to ESPN, offensive coordinator fired at halftime of his first game. Coach Patrick Nix. Like, I've been like, yes. He's a great guy. I love talking to him. He really is. He's had a ton of success, but yeah, at that time in my life. Do you remember in 8th grade, me sitting behind you and like we got in a lot of trouble because I was sitting behind you during like a worksheet. We were supposed to be quiet, and Florida State made the Orange Bowl that year when we were in 8th grade, even though Clemson beat them. And I just like kept like just saying Orange Bowl, and you ended up freaking out and we got in trouble.
That does not surprise me at all. Yeah, you hopped on that Florida State bandwagon. What, first national championship when you were alive, or was it?
Well, 93 was the first
Okay.
one. I didn't know that anything. The first national championship when I was alive, really, and knew what was happening was in 99 with Chris Winkie beating Michael Vick.
I really don't think he would have cared, though, if you would have said something like,
No, he wouldn't have.
he wouldn't have gotten mad. But
He gets it. He's got a perspective of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you definitely were pulling for that. It wasn't anything personal, but I wanted to tell him. I liked him too much. I didn't want to put him in that situation.
Should have made for some good content. He wouldn't have known what to say. It could have been a little awkward.
Also, yeah, like you would have loved for Kyle Wright to break both of his legs. you would have. Not that. Like, in a world where it wouldn't have been painful and he could have been healed and that thing. But she would have loved to have heard Kyle Wright broke his legs first day on campus, like tripped over a fountain.
I remember
both femurs gone.
That first game that he played against Florida State on Labor Day night. It was like the first game of the season. Florida State with their new quarterbacks. They had two of them that were like top 5 quarterbacks. Kyle Wright was like the number 1 quarterback for California. And like ESPN like showed him like during like the pregame show, like warming up. And this is like before this stuff was popular. He had like a sleeve up one arm. He had a visor. Like, this is before quarterbacks ever wore visors. It's like 2005 or something, maybe. Like, nobody had, or maybe even 04, like, nobody did. He had a visor. I was just like, he looks like such a freaking pretty, like, golly. From the first time I ever saw him, even after hearing about him, I hated the guy. God.
What does a 64-year-old high school football coach from South Georgia think about Kyle Wright wearing a visor and a sleeve?
Oh, he hated it.
In 2007.
In 04, when he came out there doing that stuff, he's like, that kid can't play.
And he didn't sound like that, though. That boy can't play.
That's true.
What's he wearing?
Got a visor on.
They probably think the sleeve is made of cotton too. They think it's like made of like a fabric that it's not at all. They have no idea even what the fabric is. But yeah, no, you would have loved to have had.
And the thing is, I ended up like wearing that stuff when I was in high school. Yeah. But like at the time, like when I saw that camera pan to him and he was warming up, like he was just freaking the greatest thing on planet Earth. It's like, golly, I want to freaking destroy him.
Just kind of want to punch you in the face right now.
That's kind of.
I don't know anything about you, but I just want to punch you in the face.
I was in 7th grade, and he just had like he is one of those guys. Or to me, he was one of those guys. Like he is so punchable. Like I just want bad things to happen to him because he thinks that like he is entitled to good things happening to him, even though I don't know him at all. Yeah. And he's like an 18-year-old that has like accomplished a ton athletically, and I'm like a little 7th grader who doesn't know anything about anything.
Yeah. So Chad, another coach's cliche for this week. It's becoming one of my favorite segments. It's the only segment we've done, but it is an awesome segment. I love it. I know you've said this. Coach cliche, if we don't want to work today, then we'll run the whole practice. I ain't got nowhere to be. So if we don't want to work
in
today,
that exact accent.
Yeah, we're going to run the whole practice. California guys, I wonder how y'all talk when y'all get mad. Is it like dudes, we got to do this. I don't know how they sound, but all I know is Southern culture football, and that's how they sound. So if you don't want to work today, we'll run the whole practice. Chad, when's the last time you said
we need to do a segment where, like, you go through the cliches in each different state's accent because that California one, that was something special. But, yeah, I mean, I definitely have said it, and I've done it. I have done it.
You have not made your team run the whole practice.
No, not run the whole practice. What I did is like I said that, and we ran for a while. I mean, we did like a full conditioning thing. Like we stopped practice, did a full conditioning thing, and then started practice over. So I have done that, and that added another freaking 40 minutes to practice. But yeah, I mean, I think that has any of your head coaches said that?
I think every head coach says that.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. What do you think when he says that? You're just like, you think like the kids, don't you? Like, no, he's never going to do that.
Honestly,
which is true.
Okay, so I want my team to practice hard. I'm a coach, so I want them to practice hard, but it would be amazing to be the actual only team that ever just said we are going to run the entire practice instead of practicing and actually doing it the length of what practice would have been. Because I think the key to that cliche is we're going to run the rest of practice if y'all don't get right. Because usually it's what you did. You run for a couple of minutes, then you practice again. No, I want to see a team, the first 15 minutes of practice that didn't do it right, and then the coach runs the players for the next 2 hours. They probably all die, but I mean – or get dehydrated. Like everybody would be if you did that.
Real conditioning for 2 hours is that's pretty.
We're running gassers for the next hour 45. Go ahead and get some water, fellas.
That's pretty on it. Now, I will say my JV baseball coach, who is now I'll call him out. I don't care, and he don't care. The head coach of Sherall High School right now, Andy Poole, was my JV baseball coach. He did actually make us run an entire practice.
That does not surprise me at all.
The entire time, like all I can remember thinking was how hungry I was. And like every lap, it was poles actually. We literally just ran poles, like just for an hour and a half. And like every time I got there, it's like, I'm so hungry, he's got to call it. And every time I thought that he would have sympathy for us, it's like he's not actually going to make us run for an hour 45. Like he's going to have sympathy and no, he didn't. We ran for an hour 45. Like we ran exactly that amount. So he's the only one that I've actually heard that has done it.
I feel like those punishments don't actually suck as bad, though, as like a short punishment that's really bad. Because some things can be so bad that you're just like, this is my reality for the next hour and a half, and I'm just going to embrace it. Whereas if you have 10 minutes of just going hard punishment, it's like, oh, crap, I got to practice after this too. Right. Was that one of those situations where it was so bad it was just like, all right, well, this is life now?
Yeah, I mean, you're doing it for an hour 45. Obviously, you're not going to sprint for an hour 45. So, it does turn into like a very, very slow, like slogging jog that it's mentally tough, but it's probably not as physically tough as like having to get out there and run like legit sprints for 30 minutes like a regular condition and then turn around and do practice.
Chad,
Right. That's what's terrible.
I want you to tell everybody about when you were at New Hampshire and you won the Top Cat reward during mat drills because people thought you were going hard. So this is, guys, mat drills. This is when Chad was in college. And you know how everybody's like, finish! Chad learned from a friend of ours in high school who would always make his face look like he was straining and run exaggeratively hard, but he wasn't actually going full speed. Chad learned how to fake going hard. Chad, tell him that story.
This is terrible. This is going to make me sound like the worst player ever. God.
Go ahead.
All right, so mat drills, you get awards, and we were New Hampshire Wildcat. So, man, I don't remember. It's been a long time now. You get a Top Cat award. There was 2 levels, but I think one was just the Wildcat award, and then there's Top Cat award. I go to 5 people per mat drill. I mean, there's 120 people doing the mat drill. Top 5 get it, and it's all based off of the coach's perception of effort. So it's nothing. There is no competition of it. You're going through these mat drills, which are terrible. I mean,
very much subjective.
Yeah, you can't fake going hard in a mat drill. So it's not like I was just walking around or anything. I mean, it was awful. I threw up afterwards, all that good stuff. But to separate myself from just middle of the pack, average or whatever, to actually get the Top Cat is I learned, and same like you said from somebody in high school, that if I contorted my face and made this noise, every time I made a cut or, touch the line, and contorted my face, that the coaches would think I was killing it. I was busting it more than anybody out there, 5th-year seniors who were freaking grown men out there getting after it. They thought I was going as hard as them because I would just scrunch my face up and make that noise. And I got a Top Cat award out of it, even though I was had some of the least stamina and conditioning on the entire team. I wiggled my way into a Top Cat award by contorting my face, and now I sound like the most uncoachable player in the history of the world.
No, you were going hard, but you weren't going as hard as it seemed you were going, because that noise, if I see a kid making that noise,
he is getting after it.
There's no way as a coach, I think, is this kid faking a face and making a noise to make me think he's going hard. That is the most brilliant scheme ever. So, no, I get it. I mean, I actually used that move a couple times, and it wasn't that I wasn't going hard. I just learned from Dylan. I learned from Dylan that if you make your face look like that, people are going to think you're going hard. Now, the key is if you're running slow and doing that, people are just going to think you suck because,
I was about to say, that's the difference in our friend in high school who sort of told us that is he had to do that just to make people think he was middle of the pack. Whereas for me, it was going from middle of the pack to the top. So a little different.
So, yeah, we got off the topic there, but if we're going to be here all night if we don't practice hard. I'd be interested to hear if any of you guys have actually done that before, maybe when you were playing, maybe if you're coaching. If you have, hit us up on Twitter at Coaches Drive. Guys, we got an email, thecoachesdrive@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook. We still want to hear from you. Got a couple of messages on Twitter, a couple things we're looking to talk about in some future episodes. And at some point, we're going to tweet out and find the top coach cliche in the nation. I want to find out across the nation what was the best coach cliche or what is the most popular one. So appreciate you guys listening. We have a lot of fun doing this, and hopefully you learn as much as we do. And we try to be as real as we can for you guys. But at the end of the day, we realize, like Chad said, we need to learn a ton to get better. We've got so much that we can learn, and we love doing this because we get to learn, and hopefully at the same time you are. So thanks for listening, and we'll see y'all next time.
Later.